The Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber. Volume 2. Chapter 1. Whispers of the Wastes. The first signs came with the wind. A haunting whistle echoed through the Jade Wastes, a barren stretch of desert long avoided even by seasoned travelers. Whispers followed, of falling stars, of beasts not seen since the Celestial Age, of men who walked with shadows longer than their bodies. Traders abandoned routes. Nomadic tribes vanished. The desert, once empty and desolate, now pulsed with a malevolent breath. Atop a dune, stained by moonlight, a man knelt beside a broken compass. His robes were wind-worn, his hair streaked with silver. A sword rested across his knees, the Heaven Blade, wrapped in silk and reverence. Li Feng's eyes closed briefly as the wind pressed against his face, carrying a scent he had not smelled in years. Old blood and celestial ash. "The veil is thinning," he murmured. "Something is coming." Behind him, Lady Qian dismounted her horse, her expression stern. A village 3 days east was found empty. No bodies, no tracks, just silence. The silence plague? No, something worse. Li Feng rose. "Send word to Jiangwu sect. We gather the council." In the newly built capital of Nuxiangyang, the Jade Council convened. A round chamber beneath a dome of glass and jade, filled with murmurs and arguments. Monks, generals, scholars, and spirit weavers all debated the omens. "The star that fell last week cracked the earth," said Elder Yun of the River Monks. "My disciples heard the mountain weep." "It is not natural," growled Warlord Chen. "Our scouts report creatures with glowing veins, immune to steel." Li Feng stood before them, clad in simple traveling robes, the Heaven Blade now slung openly across his back. "This is no mere celestial event," he said. "It is a door opening. Something sealed has been unsealed." Whispers spread through the hall. The youngest of the Jade Council, Master Wei, rose. "Sealed by who?" "The gods," answered Lady Qian, "and we fear what they hid." That night, Li Feng meditated beneath the shrine of the Blade Sovereign. The stars above shimmered unnaturally. A vision took him. A city of jade submerged in sand, a sword the size of a mountain, and a being made of starlight speaking in forgotten tongues. He woke with blood in his mouth. Far away, in the heart of the Jade Wastes, something moved beneath the dunes. Something ancient. Something hungry. Chapter 2. The Jade Tomb Awakens. 3 days later, a tremor rippled across the land. Villagers on the desert's edge claimed the sky cracked open like glass, revealing a pillar of jade light that pierced the clouds. The earth near the ancient Moonfall ruins split, unveiling stairs descending into the abyss, steps worn by time, yet untouched by man. Li Feng stood at the edge of that fissure, surrounded by elite cultivators, scholars, and brave volunteers. The smell of age and secrets wafted from below. Wind howled like a voice long silenced, crying out for remembrance. "The tomb of the Celestial General," whispered Elder Fan, eyes wide. "Sealed during the Divine War, it was said to hold the first man who defied the heavens." "A prison," Lady Qian murmured, hand on her blade, "for a god-killer." Without hesitation, Li Feng began the descent. The passage spiraled downward, etched with runes older than language. As their torches flickered, murals came alive, depicting a warrior of unmatched might slaying stars, breaking divine towers, challenging the immortals. Each step felt like treading upon sacred rebellion. At the base lay a colossal door of jade and obsidian. As they neared, it groaned open as though it recognized its visitor. Inside, the Hall of Truths awaited them, a chamber lined with mirrors that reflected not form, but the soul's truth. Each cultivator was forced to confront their worst regrets and secret betrayals. Many wept, some fled. One struck his own reflection until he collapsed. Only Li Feng stood unshaken, his reflection showing not guilt, but an unwavering flame of purpose. Beyond the mirror hall lay the sanctum, vast, echoing, with a sarcophagus of pure jade resting beneath a ceiling of starlight. Chains etched with celestial binding scripts held it shut. "We should not open it," Elder Fan warned again, his voice hoarse. "This is no tomb. It is a seal." "It's already waking," Li Feng replied. The jade lid shuddered. With a thunderous groan, it cracked open. A wave of energy swept outward, chilling every heart. From within rose a figure, not dead, not alive, wrapped in silver chains that glowed faintly. His eyes, twin galaxies of starlight, opened slowly. "Who summons General Yanshu?" he asked, and the words reverberated not just in ears but in bones and blood. Li Feng stepped forward. "We seek answers. The heavens stir. The wastes breathe darkness. What comes?" Yanshu's gaze turned toward the surface, his expression grim. "Then the war resumes," he said. "What was buried must rise. The gods never forgave us, and the cult has returned." Suddenly, the pillar of jade light overhead turned crimson. The air trembled. Thunder rolled across a cloudless sky. In distant temples, old seals cracked. Forgotten demons stirred in their sleep. The cult of Eternal Twilight had begun their awakening. Chapter 3. Embers of the Past. At dawn, the ruins fell into a hush. Where the jade pillar once stood, now lingered a simmering haze, twisting with divine energy and deathly stillness. The world had changed, and its silence echoed louder than any cry. Li Feng knelt beside the sarcophagus, sweat beading on his brow, his breath shallow. The presence of Yanshu was overwhelming, an ocean pressing against a fragile shore, and yet within him stirred not fear, but a distant familiarity, like a thread stretched across time. "You are touched by the old flame," Yanshu said. His chains clinked faintly as he moved. "One of the 7 legacies lost to time." Li Feng frowned. "I've never heard of this flame." "Then learn," the god-killer replied, "for the flame was born of rebellion, and rebellion shall be your only shield." Behind them, Lady Qian steadied herself, her sword drawn but trembling. "What is he, truly?" she whispered to Elder Fan. "He was mortal once," the old man said. "Then he became a myth the gods feared." Yanshu raised his hand and light shimmered from his palm. From it formed a sigil, a burning phoenix encased in 7 circles. "7 seals bind me," Yanshu said. "Break them, and I shall rise again in full, but every seal is guarded by fate, time, and blood." Li Feng stepped forward. "And what awaits if you rise?" "Salvation," Yanshu said, and then added, "or annihilation." The earth trembled again. Outside, the crimson haze thickened. The first followers of the Cult of Eternal Twilight arrived, cloaked figures riding beasts of smoke and ash. Their eyes glowed violet. Their chants warped the air. Lady Qian shouted a warning. "We must defend the tomb." With a flick of his hand, Yanshu drew the remaining strength from the tomb to erect a barrier of jade and starlight. "They are scouts. Their true force has yet to come. You have days, no more." "What do we do now?" Li Feng asked. Yanshu's eyes glinted. "You gather the embers of the old flame. Seek the forgotten legacies. Awaken those who defied the heavens. Only then can you stand against the coming storm." Thus began the quest of the Flamebearers. Chapter 4. The first Ember Night cloaked the desert like a shroud, and yet within the broken tomb a fire had been lit, one not of flame, but of destiny. Li Feng stood on the edge of a decision that could alter the fate of the world. Yanshu, half awakened and still bound in divine chains, had spoken of 7 seals and the ancient Flamebearers. But now, all eyes were on Li Feng, Lady Qian, Elder Fan, the surviving warriors of their expedition, and the flickering ghost of history itself. The nearest ember sleeps beneath the roots of Mount Shenshui, Yanshu said, his voice like grinding stone and thunder. "But beware, that place is cursed." Elder Fan nodded gravely. "The mountain has been forbidden for generations. The forest around it is haunted by the remnants of the fallen sect, the cultivators who turned to demonic arts during the last war." Li Feng's response was immediate. "Then that is where I must go." Lady Qian's brows furrowed. "You won't go alone." "I wouldn't dream of it," he said, offering a rare, tired smile. They set out at dawn, the wind howling behind them as if urging them forward. Their destination, the Valley of Withered Echoes, the path to Mount Shenshui, a place where silence had weight and even birds dared not sing. What they did not know was that others now hunted them. In a hidden chamber within the cult's obsidian citadel, robed figures gathered around a pool of blood. One among them, eyes glowing like embers, raised a hand and uttered Li Feng's name. "The Flame-Bearer awakens." Another figure hissed, "Send the Shadow Blades. His journey ends at Shenshui." Far away, blades were drawn and assassins prepared. As they approached the outskirts of the cursed valley, the terrain shifted. Trees grew twisted and thorn-covered, their bark weeping sap like blood. Even the animals had vanished. Only echoes remained. The first night, they camped beneath an ancient willow. Elder Fan stood watch, muttering incantations to ward off spirits. Lady Qian, sharpening her blade, glanced at Li Feng. "You changed," she said, "since the tomb." "I saw a future I can't turn away from," he replied. "And the cost?" Li Feng looked at the fire. "Still counting." At midnight, the ground trembled. A fissure opened before them, revealing an entrance beneath the mountain. Runes glowed red upon its surface, warnings and bindings both. Li Feng stepped forward. "This is it." They descended into the mountain's roots. Inside, they faced illusions of their darkest fears, traps powered by resentment and ancient curses, and guardians shaped from flame and sorrow. And at the heart of the labyrinth, resting on a pedestal of obsidian, was the first ember. It pulsed gently, awaiting the one it would choose. Li Feng reached out. The flame surged. Visions burst into his mind, of warriors burning like stars, of gods falling from heavens, of a phoenix screaming through time. When his hand closed around the ember, a ring of fire exploded outward, carving the ancient runes anew. The mountain roared. The seal on Yanshu's chains glowed faintly. The first seal had begun to crack. Far away, the cult felt it too. "The game begins," the high priest whispered. Chapter 5. The Shadow Blades Descend. In the dead of night, the Valley of Withered Echoes stirred. Faint footsteps padded across the skeletal remains of trees, their owners shrouded in darkness deeper than shadow. The Shadow Blades, assassins bred by the Cult of Eternal Twilight, were ghosts in the wind, and their target had just awakened the first ember. Li Feng's body still ached from the trial. Fire hummed through his veins like a second heart, restless and hungry. Lady Qian, sharp-eyed, noted his pallor. "You're burning inside," she said. Li Feng nodded. "The ember tests me. It wants to see if I'm worthy." Elder Fan placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then make it know your name, boy. Make it remember." Their rest was short-lived. The wind shifted. Lady Qian snapped to her feet. "They've come." From every shadow, blades flashed. The ambush began. Dozens of shadow blades descended from the trees, their movements synchronized, deadly. Their blades curved like serpent fangs, and their faces were masked by emotionless obsidian. Elder Fan raised a warding talisman, unleashing a wave of golden light. Several assassins disintegrated, but more followed. Li Feng drew the heaven blade, and the flame within him roared. "Come then," he shouted. "Test the fire." The fight was chaos. Fire against shadow. Lady Qian danced between enemies, her sword an arc of steel and lightning. Elder Fan called on ancient seals, creating shields that shimmered and pulsed with celestial energy. And Feng. He no longer moved like a boy. He was the flame incarnate. His strikes were wild at first, driven by instinct, but with each enemy he felled, the fire sharpened his senses, guided his blade. The ground trembled beneath their fury. But the shadow blades had a leader. He landed last, tall, robed in blood red, his mask etched with runes of despair. Feng, he intoned, the false bearer of the flame. The leader's name was Mo, and he once served the celestial sect before turning traitor. His weapon was twin crescent blades, enchanted with soul poison. Their clash was seismic. Feng's blade met Mo's fury, fire against malice. Every strike was a test of will. And then Mo whispered a curse. Feng staggered as pain lanced through his mind. Visions of his past, of his orphaned days, his sect's betrayal, the deaths of innocents, assaulted him. Mo laughed. You are unworthy, just a beggar with a borrowed fire. No, Feng growled, driving the heaven blade forward. I am the flame reborn. The heaven blade erupted, light cascading like a comet. Mo screamed as one of his crescent blades shattered. Wounded, he vanished into shadow. The shadow blades retreated. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of embers. Lady Qian knelt beside Feng. You drove him off. He'll return, Feng said, clutching the blade. Elder Fan nodded. And next time, stronger. Above them, the stars trembled. Far to the east, a second seal glowed faintly in the sky. And beneath a storm-dark sea, something ancient began to stir. Chapter 6. Beneath the Sea of Ghosts. They followed the whisper of the ember across vast deserts and forgotten plains, until at last they reached the coastal cliffs of Luhai. Here the world dropped into the Sea of Ghosts, a dark expanse said to be bottomless, where the cries of the drowned echoed with every wave. Elder Fan stood at the edge of the cliff, holding a celestial compass. It spun erratically, tugged toward the ocean. The second ember lies below, somewhere in the ruins of the sunken temple. Feng's jaw tightened. Then that's where we go. Lady Qian raised a brow. You planning to walk through the sea? Elder Fan chuckled. Not quite. I've made arrangements. From a hidden cove, they summoned a spirit-bound vessel, an ancient skiff carved from whalebone and lacquered in ghost fire. It glided across the water as if it defied the sea itself. As they sailed, spirits began to gather, phantoms drawn to the ember's heat within Feng. Some reached toward him with longing, others with hatred. He clutched the heaven blade tighter. The dead remember, Lady Qian murmured. They always do, Elder Fan said. Beneath the waves, the ruined temple came into view, a shattered colossus wrapped in seaweed and coral, its spires still glowing faintly. As they descended, water parted around them, held back by Elder Fan's magic. Inside, they faced trials not of battle, but of memory. Feng walked through a hall that replayed his worst failures, a dying friend's scream, a master turning away in disappointment, his own tears, alone in the rain. You are not worthy, the sea whispered. I must be, he replied. At the temple's heart, they found the ember, trapped in a pearl of glass, suspended above a statue of a goddess weeping into the sea. To claim it, Feng had to face the echo, an entity made of his regrets, wielding a blade of tears. Their duel was silent but fierce. Strike met strike, and Feng's fire steamed against the echo's cold. In the end, he whispered, I forgive you, and the echo shattered. The pearl fell into his hands. The second ember awakened. The temple crumbled. They barely escaped, surfacing as the sea roared and swallowed the ruins. Far above, Yanshu stirred again. 2 seals now glowed. The cult watched, and in a distant sky, a black sun blinked open. Chapter 7. The Ashen Pilgrimage. The awakening of the second ember reverberated across the lands. In temples high atop the sacred mountains, bells tolled of their own accord. Spirit beasts stirred in forgotten groves, and in the sanctums of the cult, flames curled in unnatural shapes, whispering one name: Li Feng. In the ruins of a fisherman's village by the Sea of Ghosts, Li Feng and his companions regrouped. The journey had taken its toll. Lady Qian's left arm was bound tightly in bandages. Elder Fan's aura flickered like a guttering lamp. And Li Feng, though stronger, now bore within him two flames that constantly tested his resolve. "Rest is a luxury we cannot afford," Elder Fan said, staring at a cracked map of the continent. "The third ember lies within the Ashen Wastes, beyond the scorched lands once ruled by the Crimson Emperor." "Isn't that land cursed?" Lady Qian asked. "More than cursed," Elder Fan murmured. "It's alive." They departed at dawn, traveling by hidden paths and celestial portals. Days turned to weeks. Along the way they encountered strange omens, fields where time moved backward, animals that spoke in riddles, rivers that flowed with silver fire. One night, as they camped in a canyon of black glass, a voice echoed through the flames: "Turn back or be devoured." No one slept that night. The Ashen Wastes awaited. They arrived at the edge of the dead lands, where wind carried the scent of burnt offerings and the sky was the color of rust. Cracked statues of forgotten gods littered the earth. The ground pulsed as if beneath its surface a heart still beat. "The Crimson Emperor's legacy," Lady Qian said. "He tried to become a god, burned everything in the attempt." Li Feng's steps grew heavier as they entered the heart of the wastes. The air thickened. Visions haunted them. Echoes of ancient wars, cries of the fallen, cities reduced to ash. The ember within him flared in warning. In the ruins of a shattered ziggurat, they found the trial, a pyre still burning after centuries, guarded by flame-forged knights. To reach the ember, Li Feng had to walk through fire, not of heat, but of soul. Each step burned away illusion. He saw himself as a boy, lost, unloved, angry. Then as a warrior, arrogant, fearful, burdened. Then as he truly was, scarred but steadfast, still walking. At the pyre's heart lay the third ember, black as coal, yet pulsing with inner light. When Li Feng touched it, fire bloomed across the land. The curse of the Ashen Wastes trembled, and, far away, the high priest of the cult stood atop a cliff, watching. "He's growing faster than expected," the high priest whispered. A figure stepped out of shadow beside him, Zhui Mo, healed and furious. "Then let's feed him to the fire he loves so much." Chapter 8. Flames of the Living Mountain. With 3 embers now burning in harmony within him, Li Feng's power had reached new heights, but so had the burden. Each flame demanded mastery, and each whisper of its ancient will threatened to consume him. The cult felt this rising storm and hastened their plans. Guided by a dream sent by the third ember, Li Feng saw a towering mountain, veined with molten fire, crowned in storm clouds, and breathing like a living beast. It was Mount Zhuyan, the final resting place of the phoenix-crowned flame, the fourth ember. "This place isn't on any map," Lady Qian said as they traveled through valleys shrouded in eternal dusk. "Because it hides from those unworthy," Elder Fan replied. The journey grew perilous. They encountered rogue cultivators who had heard tales of the embers and sought to steal them. Li Feng bested them all, but never with glee. Each duel left him colder, quieter, more focused. Mount Zhuyan rose from the earth like a slumbering god. At its base lay an abandoned temple, carved into obsidian stone, with murals of phoenixes dancing in firestorms. As they crossed the temple's threshold, the mountain rumbled. "We're not alone," Lady Qian warned. Zhui Mo awaited them atop the mountain. Transformed by cult alchemy and vengeance, he now wielded dark flame, the antithesis of the embers. The mountain trial began. Feng faced elemental spirits that mirrored his own inner demons. A tide of doubt, a whirlwind of rage, a flame of despair. He passed each test not by force, but by acceptance, embracing his scars, his fears, his failures. Then came the final challenge. Shui Mo. Their battle cracked the sky. Fire clashed with corrupted flame. Swords sang through the storm. Feng's companions held off cult assassins below while the heavens wept lightning. "You were always a shadow," Shui Mo screamed. "I was the destined one." Feng's eyes burned with light. "Then why do I keep rising while you fall?" With the final strike, he severed the chains of dark fire. Shui Mo fell, not dead, but broken, his fury extinguished. At the mountain summit, the phoenix crown flame soared into Feng's chest. The fourth ember ignited. His body became a vessel of balance, neither pure nor dark, but human. But far beneath Mount Zhuyan, in a chamber veiled by ancient runes, the high priest completed a ritual. "The final ember will awaken soon," he intoned, "and with it, the end of the age." Chapter 9. The Final Ember. With the fourth ember fused into his being, Feng stood at the summit of Mount Zhuyan, surrounded by winds of celestial fire and the quiet hum of divine energy. Yet the triumph in his heart was muted by a premonition. The end was near. The embers had not simply granted him power, they had awakened a deeper force, one that stirred beneath the world itself. In his dreams, he saw a door sealed by ancient runes, far below the earth, pulsing like a heartbeat. The whispers of the embers spoke of a fifth flame, one not meant for mortals. Lady Qian, battered but unbroken, looked up at him. "Your eyes, they're no longer just yours, are they?" "No," Feng said. "They see something more." Elder Fan, who had remained silent since the phoenix flame's ignition, finally spoke. "The cult's last move is upon us. Their high priest has begun the rite of immolation. He seeks to merge with the final ember hidden beneath the earth, and burn the world to ash to birth a new one." "The ember beneath the earth," Lady Qian echoed. "It's real." "It was locked away by the sages for a reason," Elder Fan said grimly. "It is not an ember of balance or life, but one of oblivion, known as the Ember of Endings." Feng knew what had to be done. They descended Mount Zhuyan, traversing war-torn lands and half-ruined temples where the cult had struck first. Villages burned, cities emptied. The cult's influence had spread like wildfire, fanned by fear and desperation. Yet, amid the ruin, small bands of resistance gathered. Some had heard of Feng, the orphan who rose from nothing, the wielder of the heavenly fire. They called him Heaven Blade. Feng didn't stop them from using the name. He didn't feel worthy of it, but he understood its value. Symbols inspired hope, and hope could rally nations. As he, Lady Qian, and Elder Fan neared the final battleground, the sunken temple known as the Throne of Ash, they were joined by hundreds. Rogue cultivators, surviving monks, wandering swordsmen, even former enemies. They had come not for Feng, but for the world he sought to protect. At the heart of the temple, beneath a seal woven from 10,000 prayers, lay the Ember of Endings. And beside it stood the high priest, now changed, his body a vessel of scorched gold, eyes hollow from centuries of forbidden knowledge. "You're too late," he rasped. "The age of man ends tonight." Feng stepped forward, flames trailing his cloak, then let it end with a sword in its heart. Chapter 10. The Ember of Endings. The temple stood as a monument to time's decay, its stone walls worn smooth by centuries of weather and battle. Beneath the shattered ceiling, the final ember, the Ember of Endings, rested upon an altar of blackened stone, surrounded by ancient runes pulsing faintly in the dim light. The high priest stood before it, his body consumed by dark flame, eyes gleaming with the madness of one who had sought immortality through the destruction of the world. "You were warned, Li Feng," the high priest sneered. "You could have become like me, an eternal being of pure power, transcending the limits of mortality. But you're just another puppet in the hands of fate." Li Feng's grip tightened around his sword. The weight of the embers in his chest had become a constant reminder of the choice he now faced. He had carried their burden, felt their fiery power surge through his veins. But with that power came clarity, the understanding that true strength lay not in domination, but in sacrifice. "I don't seek eternity," Li Feng said calmly, stepping forward. His voice, though quiet, carried the weight of 1,000 battles. "I seek to end this madness, to save what's left of the world." The high priest let out a laugh, low and guttural. "You are too weak to understand. The world must burn. Only through destruction can there be rebirth." The flames around him crackled, and the ember of endings pulsed, threatening to shatter the air itself. The ground trembled beneath their feet, as if it too feared the awakening of this last terrible force. Li Feng's companion stood at the threshold of the temple, watching, knowing the gravity of this moment. Lady Qian, with her injured arm still in a sling, and Elder Fan, his aura dimming from the strain of the journey, were the last of their line, guardians of a world on the brink of collapse. "We fight together," Elder Fan said, his voice a whisper of resolve. "Always," Lady Qian added, her eyes burning with the same determination as Li Feng's. Li Feng nodded, and in that moment the final battle began. The high priest charged forward, his body a mass of shifting flames. His hand gripped a dark blade, an extension of the ember of endings itself. The air around him crackled with the heat of destruction, and the ground beneath his feet warped as he moved. Li Feng's sword was a flash of light against the encroaching darkness. The two forces collided, flame against steel, power against will. Sparks flew, and the temple shook with the clash of titanic forces. But for every blow Li Feng struck, the high priest retaliated with more fury, more hate. "You are nothing," the high priest spat, his form shifting like smoke. "I am the fire that will cleanse this world." Li Feng's eyes burned with an inner light, his sword moving with the grace of a storm. But as he fought, he knew the truth. He could not win through sheer strength alone. He had to break the cycle, to end the high priest's madness with a single, decisive act. In that moment, Li Feng made a choice. With a single, mighty swing, he shattered the high priest's blade. The flames surrounding the cult leader faltered, and in that instant, Li Feng closed the distance between them. His sword flashed through the air, cutting through the darkness. The high priest's body crumpled, his eyes wide in disbelief as his form began to burn away, consumed by the very force he had sought to control. "No," he whispered as the flames turned him to ash. The ember of endings, with its terrible power, flickered and died, its destructive energy vanishing like smoke in the wind. The world held its breath, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, the silence of peace descended upon the land. Li Feng stood in the heart of the ruined temple, his sword lowered. His chest burned with the remnants of the four embers, now quiet, their fires dimmed but not extinguished. He had chosen the world over power, peace over destruction. The battle was over, but the consequences would ripple through time. Lady Qian and Elder Fan approached him, their faces solemn but filled with quiet pride. "We did it," Lady Qian said softly. "The world is safe." "For now," Li Feng replied, his voice carrying a hint of weariness. "But the embers are not gone. They are within us all. The true strength lies in how we choose to wield them. And so, the world, forever changed by the flames of fate, began its slow, painful journey toward healing. The path of the embers had ended, but a new chapter was about to begin. Feng turned his gaze toward the horizon, where the first rays of dawn pierced the smoke-filled sky. The future, like the flame of the embers, was both a mystery and a promise.